Hello, everyone. We are back and ready to get started today with our CCAP webinar. And with no further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our speaker for today, Mr. Jim Lopresti, who is the CCAP administrator for the Community Action Partnership and the person that you will be talking to throughout this process. So with that, Jim, ready to take it away.
Thank you very much, Cashin, and good morning and good afternoon to everyone. In this first of our Wednesday webinar series on CCAP, as Cashin pointed out, there will be other opportunities. Today's webinar will be covering the candidate data form. We will be having a webinar coming up in January, which covers the executive skills portfolio, and a webinar coming up in March, which covers the certification examination. This webinar series is one of three processes that are in place to assist you in your candidacy for CCAP. Another is participation in study groups in many of the states. Study groups gather to enable CCAP candidates to work with other CCAP candidates towards assisting one another with each of these submissions. And another opportunity for you is to work with a CCAP mentor. The list of CCAPs from around the country who have agreed to be mentors is found in the CCAP page of the partnership website. I noticed today that the majority of persons who have signed up for the webinar, as I'm looking at the participants list, are actually not currently CCAP candidates, which means that the process is new to most of you. So I want to take just a moment to give you a very brief overview of what the CCAP process is all about, so that you can get a good 36,000-foot view of what CCAP is about. It's based on two pillars, and the first pillar of the CCAP candidacy program is the Community Action Body of Knowledge Outline. Now, this Body of Knowledge Outline is a 5-section list of all the knowledge and skills which a Community Action Manager or leader is expected to know and have in their toolbox to function in a position of leadership in their community or in their agency. And this Body of Knowledge Outline functions in many ways as the groundwork for the whole CCAP program, because it is expected that those who become certified as community action professionals are fully schooled in the history of the community action movement, which is section 1 of the outline, are committed to the vision and values of community action, which are outlined in the second part of the Body of Knowledge Outline, understand and use traditional community action management skills, and put to practice 21st century leadership skills where community action's vision and values becomes real through leadership, because the community action professional is a leader in his or her community in some way. And then as well that the person who is a certified community action professional is fully grounded in understanding what the theories about the causes of poverty are, and understands in a general sense what the strategies are to address poverty. Now, the CCAP program itself, based on this Body of Knowledge Outline, is actually a process, it's a method for your peers on a national level to be able to assess your experience in each of these areas, your experience in community action, in your community, your experience in leadership, your experience in organizational skills. And that's what the candidate data form is used to make manifest. The second thing that your peers who assess your submissions assess is your skills in doing the work of community action. And that is accomplished in the executive skills portfolio, which we will look at in detail in our January webinar. And the third thing that is assessed is your knowledge about community action, your knowledge about each of these 5 sections of the body of knowledge outline. So it's an assessment by your peers on the national level of your experience, your skills, and your knowledge by 3 different assessment methods. My responsibility in the CCAP program, besides assisting the Commission and the trained volunteers of the CCAP program who do the assessing, is to assist candidates in participating in the process appropriately. My job is to help you be a successful CCAP candidate. Now, the second pillar of the program is the body of the second pillar is the Community Action Code of Ethics. And the Community Action Code of Ethics identifies for you the standards for professional behavior that guides the decisions that a community action leader makes. And as a candidate, those of you who have already signed your agreement to abide by the code, and when you do become a candidate, before you actually become a candidate, you have to submit your signature on that code agreeing to abide by it. And we take that code seriously because it does govern then our understanding of your accurately representing yourself in the submissions that you put before your evaluators. I want to let you know from the beginning that the full body of knowledge outline, all the detail that you saw under those 5 headings, as well as the Community Action Code of Ethics, and all of the related CCAP documents and the instructions for them are available right away for download from the partnership website. Make sure if you have looked before that you go to the website to download one of the most current of those forms. Again, that's at communityactionpartnership.com. So let's get into this afternoon's topic, which is a candidate data form, which is the process by which your peers evaluate your experience in community action. I'm going to look through that form with you in some detail. I will pause at certain places to see if there are any questions. I will be watching the question and answer screen as you type in your questions, and I will be able to see them and check with you at certain points during this webinar. The point of this webinar is to make it helpful for you. So please make use of that option to ask questions so that this webinar is helpful for you. Let's look at the candidate data form in a generic sense, some preliminary notes. It's based on an honor system. You sign and date the form, and you sign the Code of Ethics. That's why we use an honor system. The closing date is the 3rd Wednesday of January each year. Let me explain that a little bit more detail. When someone becomes a CCAP candidate, your candidacy is valid for 3 years. That means you have 3 years in which to complete the whole process of submitting a candidate data form, an executive skills portfolio, and passing the annual CCAP examination. Well, each year there has to be a closing date for that year to make sure that all the documents are appropriately accomplished in the right timing for that particular year. So, for example, if you submit your documents over the course of the 2015-2016 cycle with the hopes of completing it in that cycle, then the closing date for counting of points in the candidate data form is the 3rd Wednesday of January of that year. But I remind you, though, that you do have 3 years to complete the process, and not every candidate completes it in the first year. About 40% actually do. A candidate data form receives a provisional score as it arrives. That score is not final. That's a provisional score assigned by the evaluator. But that score is stored and is kept until the executive skills portfolio is stored. That's for some technical reasons about particular activities that trigger an audit of the score, and I don't want to get into all those technical details, but so that's why it's not final until the ESP is scored. So the candidate data forms then score is not communicated separately from the executive skills portfolio when that arrives and is evaluated by the Commission. So there is no communication about the candidate data form score. That being said, the candidate data form, as we look at it, you'll see you can pretty much score it yourself. You've got a generic sense of what a number of points you are likely to accumulate. And what candidates estimate for themselves is usually quite close to the actual score assigned by the evaluators anyway. Some more preliminary notes about the candidate data form. There are no partial points given in any category, including the number of years of employment. So they're in whole points, or whole digits rather. While it is staff and trained CCAP volunteers that score the candidate on first read, all decisions about ambiguous entries where it's not clear whether what the candidate has placed in a particular part of the candidate data form actually qualifies for points, the decision about those ambiguous entries is made by the chair of the commission and is final. This is an important point to especially be aware of, that to advance to the examination, the candidate needs a total score of 700 points, combining the score for the candidate data form and the executive skills portfolio. The candidate data form itself has a value up to 500 points. An executive skill portfolio, when it is scored by evaluators, also is able to accumulate 500 points. That means between the two of them, out of that 1,000 points total, a candidate must score 700 points in the evaluation process. That being said, the candidate data form itself must score at least a minimum of 300 points. That means, for example, someone might submit a candidate data form and score only 250 points, and submit an absolutely splendid executive skills portfolio getting over 450 points. Even though that total would be more than 700 points, there is a minimum for the candidate data form of 300, so one would not qualify in that year to take the examination. A candidate is able to submit additional entries to a previously submitted candidate data form at any time. And so let's say you submit your candidate data form by the third Wednesday of January in 2016, if that's your first year of candidacy, and you don't submit an executive skills portfolio, or you do and you realize that your score is incomplete, you can submit additions to your candidate data form by the next year's third Wednesday of January. You don't have to do a whole new candidate data form. There's actually an addendum page that is provided for this purpose, and we'll see a copy of what that addendum page looks like at the end, towards the end of this webinar presentation. So those are some preliminary notes about the candidate data form. Now we're going to look at the candidate data form in its 4 major sections. And after looking at each of those major sections, I'm going to pause to look at the question and answer box to see if there are any particular questions in that section. So let's look at the first section. The first section is documenting your years and experience of employment. And there's 3 areas in part 1 of the candidate data form. That is number of years as a management or executive staff in a CAA, number of years as full-time management or executive staff member in an organization other than CAA, Community Action Agency, or internship in a CAA-related organization. Now, to point out, though, that it's not necessarily just years of management executive staff in a Community Action Agency in number 1.1, that it also can mean the number of years as in a management leadership position in an state association, a regional community action association, a state CSBG office, or a sub-grantee of a community action agency. But notice There's a number of points that can be earned in each section on the candidate data form per submission. So one gets 15 points per year, 4 years of employment as an executive, 3D Action executive. However, the maximum number of points that you can accumulate in that category is 150 points. So if you've been in your position of management for 10 years, you get 150 points. If 11 years, it's still 150 points. You can't earn more than that. Now, I'm sure many would ask right at this point, now, what qualifies as a management or executive staff position in the Community Action Agency? Let's look at the next slide, which will show us exactly what qualifies. Along with the candidate data form, the candidate submits a position worksheet for that those entries in 1.1 years as management or executive staff in a CAA or in a CSBG office or in a state association. But let's look at the things that constitute that kind of a position. A candidate has to be able to mark any three of the following 5 for each position that is claimed as executive management in 1.1 in the candidate data form. The position includes authority beyond mere responsibility to carry out others' orders. The position supervises at least one other employee. The position includes the responsibility to report directly to the board, a board committee, or the CEO. The position includes responsibility and accountability to a budget, or the position is a member of the executive team. If you can answer yes to any 3 of those 5, then your submission under category 1.1 will count for the number of points in that section. Okay. Now that is all there is in section 1. It's one of the briefer parts of the candidate data form. I'm looking over at the Q&A box. I don't see any questions. I hope that's because it's all very clear to you. But you can ask questions later if they come to mind. Let me check, Cashin. You don't have any questions that I don't see, do you?
I don't see any. We have a shy group today.
Okay, thank you. So let's look at the second and the longest section on the candidate data form, and that's experience in education. That section has 12 subcategories, and we'll look at each of the subcategories. I want to point out that the actual candidate data form gives you a little bit more detailed information in some explanatory boxes. I'm now giving you that information verbally, but that information will be given to you in written form for the most part in those boxes as well. So the first is college or graduate degrees. And you can see that you can gain 40 points for an associate, 100 for a bachelor's, 150 for a master's. But if you have both an associate and a bachelor's, you can accumulate both. It would be 140 points. But if you have a master's or a doctorate, that's going to give you your maximum number of points for degrees that you have achieved. Section 2.2 in education is for college credits that you earned in management courses, other than those you applied to a degree. So if they're part of the courses in that degree that you just claimed, they don't count. Let's say you went to a college afterwards to refresh your knowledge and understanding, maybe on human resource management or something, or accounting skills, that you can then claim those additional courses. Or let's say you didn't complete a degree. You can count those courses for a degree that you didn't complete. But again, you can see there's a maximum number. It's 3 per college credit, but the maximum number of points you will get in that section is 30. Section 2.3 gives you the opportunity to claim points for management courses completed for which you did not receive college credit. These might be, for example, continuing education courses that you took to keep your licensure, for example, or your certification in a particular discipline, or other courses, but you'll notice that there's a specific expectation or requirement about the length of that the course must be 12 hours or more of classroom contact to count in that category, right? And the fourth section is for specialized community action, national, state, or regional executive training programs. Now that references very specific training programs that have been sponsored by national, regional associations and organizations to educate community action professionals in a comprehensive way around community action management skills. And there are actually a number of specific training events that are listed. And there are only these that are listed in the candidate data form that count. Some of them actually were training events that occurred that no longer exist. For example, the Executive Development Institute was offered in Missouri in the late 1990s, early in late 1990s. But it no longer exists, but it was recognized then, so it's grandfathered in. So if you've been around community action a long time and participated in that whole program, you can still accumulate those points. There is no maximum look-back period for your candidate data form. All of your experience over your years doing the work of management and leadership counts. So in addition is the Southeast Association Certification Training Program, which continues today, counts in that section. As are the Community Action Partnership Executive Training Series, again, former, and current Roma Training Certification Program, which is the national program to teach others about Roma. The Partnership Pathways Reviewer Training, the Partnership's Elite Program Training, and the National Family Development Credential. Each of those is able to be claimed in that section of the candidate data form, that very special section. And again, when you look at the actual candidate data form, it gives you a little bit more detail about exactly what things you need to check off in the form to qualify. For example, that you actually participated in all of the program, not just part of it. Okay? Let's look at the next group of educational activities that are in the candidate data form. 2.5 is management seminars completed that were focused specifically on the fundamentals of community action or on nonprofit management, not other kinds of management seminars, but specifically about community action or specifically about nonprofit management. So, for example, your local state association might have management seminars for new persons in leadership positions that you participate in those seminars. Again, you'll see that there is a certain number of points allowed per number of contact hours and a maximum number of points in that category. I want to remind you that there is no partial credit given. So if your training program lasted 9 contact hours, you don't get 4.5 points. You get 3 for 6 hours. There's no partial credit. 2.6 is for attendance at a CAA-related state, regional, or national training event. So, for example, if you went to your state association's annual conference, or you went to the partnership's annual conference last year in San Francisco and participated in a 90-minute training, every one of those counts towards at 1.5 at contact hours. We calculate that most training events are in 90-minute chunks at 1 per. 2.7 is management-related seminars and workshops are sponsored by professional or trade associations. or business organizations or government agencies or commercial seminar producers that are not necessarily about community action or not necessarily about not-for-profit management. And those, again, are you can accumulate 1 point per half day, and half day is a minimum of 6 hours. 2.8, attendance at state association conferences. Just for going to the conference. That is not necessarily taking anything. Just presuming you go to the conference, you network, you meet with people. So just attending the conference is considered a part of your experience of professional development in community action, because it is a place to meet new people. So that can be said in 2.8 for your state association, 2.9 for regional association conferences, 2.10 for the Community Action Partnership's annual convention, 2.11 is for your attendance at the National Community Action Foundation National Conference that happens only in March every year in Washington, D.C. That's 2 points per year participation. And 2.12 is an opportunity for you to claim points for attendance at other national conferences that might be of related organizations. For example, persons who work in weatherization or Head Start, or maybe there is a state or regional association for persons who do transportation assistance. Those kinds of conferences also count. But note, it's 2 points per conference and a maximum of up to 10 points. Once you've gone beyond that, you will not get more points. Okay? I'm going to take a look at questions in the question and answer box. And I see that one person asked, is it possible to get a record of all the management seminars that we attend through our webinars? That I don't have the option to give to you a record of management seminars we attended through webinars. I have to defer that to Cashin. Is it possible for persons who attend webinars to Cashin to get a record of management seminars that they attend in that form?
So the answer is partially. From our TNTA division, we do track any of the webinars that we have done as kind of deliverables in our grants and projects. So we try to, at the end of each year, start trying to kind of gather all those up and send you a transcript of sorts for the webinars that you attended through that. Now, that's only a so-so record, because if it was not one that either the partnership was the host or sponsor of, or if it was not really related to our specific TNTA grants, it would not be included. So I would tell you when to expect that, but I would say that we're probably going to get caught up in our Management and Leadership Training Conference, which I do hope you'll attend so that you can get the points for that on here. So expect probably that transcript to come early in 2016 instead of by the end of this year. I don't want to make promises that we can't keep.
Let me add a comment to what Cashin just said to you, and that is we do not expect when someone completes a candidate data form that the candidate needs to demonstrate any kind of proof that they attended a particular training or a particular webinar. Again, as pointed out, one of the pillars of the CCAP process is signing the Code of Ethics. In that signing of the Code of Ethics, we take your word for anything that you put in the candidate data form. So it really means if you've attended a webinar or you've attended any other training, it's to keep the record for yourself of what trainings you've participated in, and just claim them. But we don't. There is not a point at which the evaluators ask someone to approve the entry that they place in the form. There's a little something different when we get to Section 3, though, about publications. It's a little different I'll get to in just a moment. I think that takes care of our questions. So let's move to Section 3 of the candidate data form. And that's involvement in national, regional, state, and local community action activities. This is the second longest of the sections of the candidate data form. There are 9 subsections. Let's look at the first 5 now. One is instructional presentations that you've done to a community action agency other than your own. And you're given up to 5 points per event, and it's rare that 5 points are not given for that presentation event. You are asked to say when that happened and to what organization that presentation was given, on what date. And you don't, again, you don't have to prove any of that. But these are expected to be opportunities when you are doing the work of community action outside of just your own agency, that you are showing leadership in some way by, let's say, talking about the program that is yours at the agency. It may be that you're talking about advocacy for community action in other agencies, or that you may be talking about quality improvement initiatives, or you may be talking to them about creative programming for community economic development, or that you may be talking about your experience of working through complex reporting requirements and imparting those skills. Or you might be someone who's talking to them about the ways to establish and work out the bugs in an electronic health record in your health department in your agency, or et cetera. So it could be any topic in which you are helping any other community action agency or association with the work of community action. The second one is instruction presentations to non-CA organizations on CA-related matters. Let's say you're giving a presentation to the United Way, or the local county government, or to potential donors to support community initiatives, that you are giving that presentation to any organization about community action related matters. Again, that's up to 5 points per event to a total of 30. This whole Section 3 then presumes that you're not siloed, that you're doing work around community action outside of just within your own silo in your agency. 3.3 is a discussion leader or panelist for a CA organization other than your own. That relates back to 3.1. So in 3.1, that's one where it's presumed that you're doing the presentation. And 3.3 is you're a panelist in a group that's doing the presentation. 3.4, again, relates to 3.2. You might not be the person doing the presentation, but you're part of the panel that someone else is doing a presentation from your agency. So you get credit both for being the actual presenter or for being a panelist in any of those presentations about community action. 3.5, as you'll notice, 3.5 allows you a significant number of total points, 50. 3.5 is specifically your opportunity to claim points for any way in which you have somehow assisted as a peer reviewer in another agency. Perhaps you worked with fellow persons in transportation to advise the transportation department in your city. Perhaps you have become part of a review team that looks at quality practices in other agencies. Perhaps you've been part of a planning committee with the United Way, with other organizations that looks at community initiatives and where there is a need to address new realities in the community. It could be anything, and it's so very much specific to what is happening in any community. But as you'll see, all of Section 3 looks at your contribution to the community outside just your own agency. Let's take a look at the next 4 in Section 3. Section 3.6 gives you credit up to 3 points per article for any articles that you've published on community action matters. Perhaps you sent an article to a local newsletter. Perhaps you wrote an article in your agency's own newsletter. Perhaps you've written an op-ed piece, or you've written a letter to the editor making your comments about what someone else has said. Now, a candidate can get, as you'll see, up to 3 points per article, and actually there's guidance to the evaluators of what kinds of articles get different amounts of points. And again, there's a maximum up to 15 points. Now, it says the article must be attached. That if the article is especially long or the publication is especially long, you can just attach the contents of the article along with your electronic submission. The reason that that is there is that sometimes when an audit is done of a CDF score, the evaluators can, if they want, ask for that complete article. It's not likely, but the evaluators do have that option. Section 3.6 is membership on a community action agency board. Now, that usually presumes that someone who's been on a CA board before they became an employee. It is well understood in the candidate data form that a lot of persons get their experience in community action. Let's call it from the ground up. Many persons who have been consumers in the particular agency's programs then become members of committees that assist in improvement of those programs, and then eventually become, for example, a low-income community representative on the tripartite board, or maybe a business representative on the tripartite board. But then when the time comes when a position opens in the agency and they're a best candidate for the position, well, then they leave the board of search to become actually a member of the agency's staff. Well, all those years that someone was a member, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, excuse me, 3.7, we're still looking at that. All the years that someone has been a member of the Community Action Agency's board predating that employment counts. 3.8 is for membership on a state, regional, or national community action board. Again, a lot of points are available in that section, at 5 points per year up to a maximum of 50 points. And the final section, or subsection, in Part 3 of the candidate data form is your membership on other human services organization boards of directors. For example, I'm on the board of directors of a local oversight organization for distribution of state and federal funds to mental health agencies. I could claim that membership in that board of directors, for example, as membership towards that or in that category. Whatever might be your involvement in any of those kinds of organizations would count. Again, it's a smaller number of points permitted and only up to a maximum of 10 points. Okay, I'm going to look now to the question and answer box. And someone asked a question in that about 3.2, 3, and 4. And the question is, can we count presentations we did before we started working for our CAA? And the answer is yes. So long as it is about the topic areas that 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4 identify, okay? If it's about community action-related matters or nonprofit management-related matters or anything that serves the low-income community, those can count. Someone also asked, do advisory committees for government entities count as boards? For example, I'm on the advisory committee for 211, which is, I suppose 211 is your community's information organization, which is under city. Boards are not allowed for government entities. The answer is a definite yes. Advisory committees are often, that's very common for persons who function in public community action agencies. And advisory committees function in similar fashions as boards do for nonprofit organizations that are 501c3s. So that's quite common for persons who are CCAP candidates from public agencies. I'm supposing that might be your circumstance, but even if it's not, if you do serve on that advisory committee, it will count. Okay, but again, you notice it's only a maximum of 10 points, those membership on those boards, on other human service organizations. Okay, I think that's all the questions we have there. I hope I've answered accurately the persons who've asked those questions. You can always, again, if it didn't feel like an adequate answer, please ask more. I don't see any more. So I'm going to proceed to section 4 of the candidate data form, which is a brief section of only 3 sub-entries. Okay, let's take a look at section 4. Section 4 is for instructional materials, up to 5 points per document. That instructional material might be a manual. It might be a webinar that you produced to train persons who you supervise on the program that you run, where you would, or it may be something that's another format, any format. It might be a video, a training video. You are asked to attach that instructional material. We request, if you are doing a submission, if it would be, for example, a webinar, rather than sending the PowerPoints, it's usually better to send a PDF file of it. If it is an instructional video, you could probably just send a summary of that video. But whatever instructional materials that you publish in your agency, that's acceptable at 5 points per document, up to 30 points. Instructional presentations on community action management for non-CAA related associations. This is different from 3.1, section 3, which is all about community action related activities. 4.2 is instructional presentations for non-CAA related associations. It might be to a local church, for example, or something like that. Excuse me. 4.3, involvement in non-CAA related association management organizations. My apologies, I have a bit of a cold today. It's catching up to me right now. Sorry. Okay. That's the end of, I apologize. That's the end of section 4. It's only those 3 subcategories. Let's see if there are any other questions. I don't see any. I'll apologize if that makes a lot of noise through your speakers. I think I'm done with my coughing jag. Okay. I don't see any questions in section 4. Okay, so I'm going to do a summary section with some reminders. First of all, I'm showing you the candidate data form addendum page. As I mentioned earlier, the CCAP candidacy lasts for 3 years, and you are able to add to your candidate data form after your first submission. You don't have to commit a complete new candidate data form. You just use this form. And when you use this form, you indicate what part of the candidate data form, by checking it, you're relating to. Like it might be number 1. You've had a number of new years of experience. And you would write in this section the item number. So it's 1.1. And then you would enter on the form here the specific information that you're expected to add to your submission in each of those. Well, let's say, for example, you've attended your state association training session, your state association meeting. That would be in section 2. You'd mark what part of section 2 are you using. In that instance, it would be 2.8, attended a state association meeting. And as would be required, you'd indicate here exactly at the bottom of that what would be the date of that attendance. So the candidate data form addendum just means that you complete what would be on the candidate data form by using that form, so that you don't have to do a whole new candidate data form. Okay? Next, some reminders about enrollment. That all you need to enroll is available for you, all the enrollment instructions, on the website at communityactionpartnership.com at the CCAP page, and that you can gain further assistance in the process of becoming a CCAP candidate and during your whole candidacy period by connecting with a CCAP mentor. Those mentors are listed on the website. You'll see a link in the CCAP page. You can connect with a study group in your state. You can attend the future CCAP Wednesday webinars. Wednesday, January 13th is the Executive Skills Portfolio. Wednesday, March 30th is the CCAP examination. So that's the information I wanted to share with you today about the candidate data form. It's my job, as I mentioned before, my responsibility to assist you in becoming a successful CCAP candidate. And you will see that when you enroll in the Community Action Partnership CCAP program, that references connecting through CCAP Contact at AOL. That's an address that goes directly to my desk. CCAP Contact. I am the CCAP Contact at AOL.com. So if you have further questions as you think about this webinar a little later, further questions about the enrollment process that you have, please feel free at any time to send an email to me at ccapcontact@aol.com, and I will respond to that question as soon as I possibly can. I monitor that email address daily and very frequently during the day, so it is rare that someone does not get a response within 24 hours. So please connect. It is my hope to help you become a successful CCAP candidate and then to watch you walk across the stage and become, that picture includes you in the successful CCAP class. Hopefully for some of you next year, 2016, in Austin, Texas, or someday in the future when you will join the ranks of certified community action professionals. Thanks for this opportunity to share this information with you today. I look forward to contacting with you for more. But let me first take a look to see if there are any questions in general about the whole candidate data form. Let me see what we have. Someone asked 4.3, let's go back to that in our candidate data form. 4.3, involvement in private university alumni board of directors. Would that be part of involvement in non-CA related association, management organization? I would suggest to anyone who has doubts about something that you think does apply, put it in there. And if it's an ambiguous entry, it's up for the chair of the board, chair of the certification commission to make the decision about ambiguous entries. That's most, I can't say that it definitely would be accepted, but it's really something anyway, when the form is devised, there's no way that the framers could imagine any possible kind of involvement. But I would suggest, if you think that it does, place it there, okay? Someone has a question: for years of experience as a management executive, can you count years of management out of CA and nonprofits, such as experience in the private sector business management? Let's go back to the earlier slide in section 1, the whole of section 1. You see that the whole of section 1 has 3 chances to gain points. 1.1 is for number of years as management and executive staff in a community action agency. 1.2 is for full-time management staff or executive staff member in any organization, no matter what kind it is, in an organization, whether it's for-profit or not-profit. You may have been responsible as a manager of a local organization. That would count as well. And again, the evaluators don't ask for proof of that. If you think that that does count for skills for management, if you think that really is something that demonstrates you have management skills, then by all means add to it, okay? One other person asked a question: can I find out if any other people are applying from my state? If you want to send a message to me, I can tell you if there are other candidates in your state, but we don't mention the names of other candidates in states unless the candidate chooses to share that information. We do encourage candidates from the states, though, to connect with one another. But send me a message to, and I'll let you know about that. Someone mentioned, can I find out if any other people are applying for my state? Someone asked another question. Oh, and the next question, can I find out if any other people are applying for the same question? I'm from Texas. I heard that there are no CCAPs. Yes, there are CCAPs in Texas, very few of them. I anticipate there will be a number of candidates, I hope, in Texas this year because of the Partnerships Convention being in Austin. I would suggest contacting this Texas Association and tell them of your interest to make sure that there are other CCAP candidates in Texas. Right now, there is not a, to my knowledge, I haven't been informed of it yet, of an organization-wide effort in Texas to enroll CCAP candidates. But if you do, again, send me a message. I will send a message to other candidates in your state and ask them if they were willing to connect with candidates in the state, and I will network to make sure that happens for you. So if you have that question for your state, again, please connect with me, at CCAP contact in AOL, and I'll facilitate the process. I don't think there are any other questions. Okay. Our time is just about up for our 1-hour webinar. I thank you all very much for participating in this webinar. Again, I look forward to being there to be of assistance to you in your CCAP candidacy. And again, your emails are most welcome. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jim, for your time and expertise today. We are getting to the end of our time, as he mentioned, though I did want to remind everybody that this was recorded, and both it and the slides will be made available to everyone who registered and put on the CCAP page of the partnership's website. So these will be able to serve as resources for you going forward. And I also wanted to reiterate the importance of being involved and talking to your state association, both to help you kind of rack up some of those points as far as presentations and attendance, but also I have heard of several states that do somewhat sponsor, in a sense, a cohort of people to go through the CCAP process together. So ask your state association if they know of any others, because no sense in going through it alone if you don't have to. So with that, hopefully we will see you at our Management and Leadership Training Conference in New Orleans, Louisiana, January 6th through 8th. If not, then we will at least hopefully see you virtually on January the 13th for the next webinar in this series. Reach out to either the partnership or Jim directly with any questions you have in the meantime. Thank you, everybody, and have a fantastic rest of your day.